The Louie T Network is powered by MusicHead University. MusicHeads, classes in session. Turn me up. Enroll on YouTube now. Link is in the description.
Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie T? Welcome to the Command Post Live. You know what it is. Post up. Take command. I, of course, am your commander-in-chief, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. So I wanted to come on tonight and just rap with y'all a little bit. This is kind of a precursor to what's kind of going to take place next week. Next week for me is going to be like the state of the organization during the bye week. There won't be a ton of content, obviously, coming out from the team. There's no game to prepare for, et cetera, et cetera. So what we'll do next week is really take inventory of where we are as an organization. And today is sort of a precursor to that for me, right? It's preparing myself mentally for the conversations that we'll have next week and preparing you for them as well. Some of you are already having these conversations. Some of you have already moved on to the draft. I'm not there yet. That's just not my style, especially before Christmas, before Thanksgiving. We almost were having these conversations before Halloween. I just can't, right? I can't. So for some of you, though, you've seamlessly transitioned into draft talk. Rio is sending me mock drafts and, draft profiles. And I'm like, I don't want this shit, bro. Stop sending me this. I'm looking at the links now to see if there's like a name in there. Dane Brugler. I know not to click on that shit. I know that Dane Brugler does draft shit. I don't need to see that, right? Like that's where my head is now. So, what I've realized this season has been so disappointing for so many reasons. I can't begin to tell you the amount of excitement I had going into the season. You guys know. I mean, if you were at the live event, shout out to everybody that was in attendance. Sorry to those of you who were trying to watch at home and couldn't enjoy the stream because of the quality of it. But you guys who were in attendance at the live event saw the excitement that we had. You saw the shit that we were talking. Like, we truly believed the shit that we were saying. Like, I truly believe this team could win 12 games again, win 11 at the bare minimum, win 11 games, and compete for the NFC East crown this season. I truly believed that this team not necessarily would win the Super Bowl or even be in the Super Bowl, but would definitely get back to the postseason and at least win a playoff game. Like, I was expecting our lives to have forever been changed by the 2024 season. And look, there are going to be some seasons potentially that don't go the way that they're supposed to due to injury. We see it happen around the league all the time. Every year isn't going to be the same. Every year isn't going to be successful because injuries do happen in this league. They just don't usually happen in this amount to one team basically at the same time. Like DQ said, normally it's spread out. You may get peppered with injuries, but it's throughout the course of the year. We're just getting hammered with injuries week after week after week. And it's multiple guys usually every single week. And so I've never seen anything like it, but I can tell you this, and I try not to be this guy. I try not to be the guy that allows my emotions to take over and I'm not rational. I pride myself on trying to remain rational. It's one of the reasons why I don't do live streams during live events, is because you get my raw emotions in the moment, and sometimes they're not the best. Okay. Sometimes they're not the best. And so in order to be able to come to you with a face that is one of hope and one of reason, I always like to collect myself. And I don't need a lot of time to collect myself, but I'm pretty sure you guys watching these games live, you're losing your shit. And I see it in the comment section when we're in the mob and people are losing their shit because it's raw emotion. Like, and that's how it's supposed to be, right? But I'm not going to lie to you. I'll be honest with you. There have been times this season, and far too many, where my emotions have exceeded my rationale. And that is not what I stand for, right? But I was so invested this year in trying to rid myself of the last bit of PTSD that I was holding on to that I had tunnel vision. And there was no way that this season wasn't going to go well. In my mind, there was no other way but success for this team based off of what transpired last year and everything they had done going into the season, adding Debo, adding Laramie Tunzel, having a healthy Marshawn Lattimore, seeing the improvements made to this roster, adding Trey Amos in the secondary, adding Josh Connolly Jr. at right tackle, and getting Sam Cosmi back at some point, really feeling like you had fortified the line, adding a Bill who I was really excited about, still am excited about. Like, all these pieces made me feel like we're a better team on paper than the one that we put on the field last year. Now we just got to go out and execute. And having continuity, second year of the defensive scheme with better talent, second year of the offensive scheme with better talent, this is going to be everything that we envisioned it to be, and maybe then some. And then the season started, and none of that came to fruition, and the opposite happened, and everything that could go wrong did go wrong. And I'll be honest, my emotions got the best of me right around week 7 against Dallas. Season's done, we're cooked. And that wasn't wrong. That wasn't a lie. The season was absolutely over, probably against Dallas. I wasn't willing to admit that then. My season's over, stream was the Seattle one. That's when it hit me like a ton of bricks. Like, there's no salvaging this season. It's over. The season from hell has officially hit its crescendo on a primetime stage with everybody watching, and then the quarterback goes down. We're very fortunate that was not a more significant injury to Jaden Daniels, but that was the crescendo of the season from hell, was that week 10 or 9, ass whooping in front of the nation on the biggest stage that the NFL has, Sunday Night Football, and then having your quarterback go down to make matters worse. It doesn't get any worse than that, And so I was very emotional that night, not like to the point where I'm ranting and raving and going crazy, but you could sense my frustration there and how I felt. But I've had time now to kind of process everything, process the season, process what has transpired, take a step back. I've been hypercritical of Adam Peters. And look, again, I've said this to you guys numerous times. I think you've seen that this is a fact now, that anytime you have a season like the one we're in the midst of right now, everything is up for discussion. Everything is up for debate. Nothing is safe. No one is safe. Nothing is safe. Everything is in question. And even the quarterback right now, you got people questioning Jaden Daniels. And, which is the most asinine thing to me. But that's what happens when you have a season like the one we're currently turning in right now. No one is safe. Not the star quarterback that just led you to the NFC Championship game for the first time in 33 years. Not the coach that did it. Not the GM that did it, right? Not the owner that bought the team that saved you and your favorite franchise from the depths of despair, who got you a brand new stadium in the place that you never thought you'd be able to go back to. No one's safe. Everyone is under a microscope right now, whether right or wrong. Here's what I've come up with, though. Like, here's what, in having time to reflect, take a look at everything, and just understanding how the NFL works. I know better. When you know better, you do better. I've done this for far too long. I've been watching the NFL for even longer, so I know how this goes. I want to ask you, those of you watching live right now, and then those of you who will be watching this on playback, a simple question. How far do you think, just how far do you think the Commanders are away from being a contender? And a contender is a very vague, it's a vague term because it could mean contending for the NFC East, contending for, supremacy in the conference, going to the championship game, or a Super Bowl contender. It's a very like contender. When you hear it, you normally just think Super Bowl. But if I'm talking about a Super Bowl contender, I'm going to specify Super Bowl contender. I'm not specifying Super Bowl. How close are the Commanders to contending? Just being a hyper competitive team that you trust week in, week out is going to be in the fight. They're going to win more games than they lose. They're going to be a playoff team, and they're going to have a chance once they get there. That's what a contender is for me, right? So I'll give you an example of a team that's a contender this year, right? The Chargers are a contender. Does anyone here watching this video now, live or at home, believe the Chargers can win the Super Bowl this year? I don't speak for anyone else. I'll speak for myself. The answer is no. The Chargers are not good enough to win the Super Bowl this season. Could they win a playoff game? Sure. Absolutely. They can. But as constructed with both of their tackles out, with the way that they're set up right now, with some of the deficiencies that they have defensively, can the Chargers compete for a Super Bowl? No. They're not Super Bowl contenders, but they are a team that can contend. They're in the mix. They should be a playoff team. They should be a threat to win a playoff game or two. How far are the Commanders from contending after watching this season? And you've had plenty of time, and you'll have even more time, right? This week, we play at 9:30. You'll be able to watch every single game this week without the distraction of a Commanders game. You'll be able to do the exact same thing next week. You've already had at least 3 weeks, possibly 4 weeks, 2 Monday nights, a Sunday night, and a Thursday night. You've had 4 weeks already where you've been able to watch every single game without the distraction of a Commanders contest. You're going to have 2 more this week coming up, next week when we're on our bye, and then you'll have another week after that when we come off the bye because we're playing on a Sunday night. So you're going to have plenty of time. You've already had plenty of time. You've watched the league. You know that from a talent perspective, we're not in the ballpark of a lot of these teams. I'm aware of this. You're aware of it. Our shit doesn't look like their shit. I know. You watched the game on Monday night with those 2 defenses. Our defense looks nothing like that. I'm not sure if it was going to ever look like that even when it was fully healthy. I don't think it was going to look that way. Because we don't have those types of players right now. It takes time to build up a program that looks like the Green Bay defense. You know, I talked about this. I don't know if I've said this out loud to anyone. I think I said it after the game. Maybe I didn't. Maybe I said it to myself and I thought I said it out loud. Or maybe I said it to Rio, talking to him off, camera. But just the Green Bay defense alone. Let's just focus on Green Bay's defense. Rashawn Gary's a first-round pick. Devontae Wyatt's a first-round pick. Quay Walker's a first-round pick. So is Edgerrin Cooper is, I think, a second-round pick. Lucas Van Ness, who doesn't play a lot, is a first-round pick. I said Edgerrin Cooper. I think he's a second-round pick. Xavier McKinney's a second-round pick. That was a free agency signing. Michael Parsons is a first-round pick. Obviously, that was a trade. They're not going to have a first-round pick the next 2 years, I believe. 1 or 2 years. Whatever it looks like they got from Dallas or Dallas got from them. I said all that to say this. The Packers have invested year after year after year after year in their defense. You also got to be shrewd enough to find pieces that don't require a first-round pick, a second-round pick, a third-round pick, a fourth-round pick. You got to hit on a fifth-round pick. You got to find an undrafted diamond in the rough. I'm not sure about their safety, Williams. I don't know where they got him from. He feels undrafted to me. He could be a fifth-round pick out of Vanderbilt for all I know. I know he ain't a day one or day two pick. I do know that. He's a damn good safety. I know the two corners, Keyshawn Nixon and Carrington Valentine. I know those two guys aren't draft picks. And if they are, I'm going to go ahead and say they're not. I think they're both undrafted. But if they are draft picks, you're talking day three picks, fifth round or later. So, again, you got to find these guys. You got to develop these guys. Then you got to have the right guys to put them in positions to succeed. But what I'm trying to convey to you is that Green Bay didn't build this defense overnight. I just told you that they had multiple first-round picks invested. Rashawn Gary, I don't know if I mentioned him. That's a first-round pick as well. I think I did mention him. But there's multiple first-round picks invested in that front seven alone. It takes time to build this thing up. It takes time. So it's not going to happen overnight. But what I also know is that while we may not look like Green Bay's defense, we may not fly around and swarm like Atlanta's defense or their front. And look what Atlanta just did, right? They invested 2 first-round picks on edge rushers, and they've reshaped their front seven. It was a group that couldn't get to the quarterback. Atlanta had the least amount of sacks over the last 7 years in the NFL. And then they went and got those 2 edge rushers, went out and got Gumby in free agency, remade, reshaped, remolded their front seven. And now they got the most, they're one of the most aggressive teams in getting after the quarterback this season. I know Denver leads the league in sacks. I wouldn't be shocked if Atlanta's second or third. Every time I look up, Atlanta has 6 or 7 sacks in a game. Nobody else, it feels like, is doing that. But Denver clearly is. It feels like no one in the NFC, at least, is doing that. I only say this to bring up the point that I know some of you believe that this team is light years away. And it, in the moment, right now, it feels that way. And you're not wrong for feeling that way. I get it. Because when you watch other teams and then you watch this pathetic, excuse for a football team go out and try to play defense, you can't help but think to yourself, this isn't missing the mark, DQ. We didn't just miss the mark. We're not even on the same stratosphere. We're not even in the same stratosphere as these other teams. To hell with missing the mark. Missing the mark is you took a dart and you threw it at the board and you missed the target, right? Man, we didn't hit the bullseye, but we hit the 5, right? No. We're not even hitting the board. We're one of those holes that's in the door because we didn't hit the entire dartboard, right? Here's what I'll tell you. This is what I think. I don't think we're as far as a lot of you think. We agree on this. We need to upgrade the talent on this roster, more specifically, the young talent on this roster. We don't have nearly enough of it. But again, this is to be expected in year 2 of a recalibration in which year 1, you did something that you did not anticipate doing. I talk about context matters. Had we went 7-10 last year, you don't go out and sign Von Miller. Von Miller's not signing here, right? Von Miller told you why he came here. It was between us and Seattle. He chose us because of what he just watched Jaden Daniels do, because this team was just in the NFC Championship game. Not that Von Miller has made a difference this season. He could have chose Seattle. He probably should have chose Seattle. I wish he would have chose Seattle because he ain't made a bit of difference here. But maybe he has in the locker room with the shit going the way that it's gone. Maybe he's been one of those veterans that I talked about earlier today that stood up and really kept everyone focused despite the way the season's gone. So maybe he has served the purpose. I don't know. But his play on the field hasn't warranted us going out and getting him and being excited about it. But Bills fans told me when we signed him, bro, trust me, the Von Miller you've come to know and love, that guy's gone. He's not coming back. So my expectations weren't like extremely high. I would have rather just had Dante Fowler Jr. to be back here, to be honest with you, but that's nor here nor there. Ultimately, the reason Adam Peters decided to bring in veterans, the reason you go out and get a Dietrich Wise, you trade for a Laramie Tunzel, you bring in a Von Miller, you trade for a Deebo Samuel. The reason you do these things and give up draft capital in the process in certain instances to do those things. The reason you trade for a Marshawn Lattimore last trade deadline. The reason you do these things is because you had an opportunity there during the trade deadline when you acquired Marshawn Lattimore, and corner was our biggest deficiency at the time. And then in the offseason, you said, we were 60 minutes away from the Super Bowl. We can fix this offensive line, which was dominated in the NFC Championship game. We can fix this defensive line, which was dominated in the NFC Championship game. And we'll have a shot to get back here again and this time win. So instead of accumulating young, talented players, you went and got grizzled old veterans because you're looking for guys to push you over the top. Young players don't do that. Veterans do. We swung and we missed. It happens in this league because of injury. And the only thing that I don't regret anything that this team did, including trading for Marshawn Lattimore. You're going to win some, you're going to lose some in the trade department. I don't regret trading for Marshawn Lattimore because last year when we were going for it, we were all excited. I didn't want to trade for Marshawn Lattimore at the time, but once they did it, I was on board because we needed cornerback help. Had we not did what we did last year, and we go on 7-10, I assure you that we don't trade for Laramie Tunzel. We don't trade for Deebo Samuel. We don't sign Von Miller. You probably don't sign Jonathan Jones, and you don't sign Dietrich Wise, and you don't go with all these veterans. You probably take a different approach because we weren't close if you were 7-10. But when you're 12-5, you make it all the way to the NFC Championship game, you feel like you're a couple pieces away. So you make moves that fit where you feel like you are in the timeline. Our timeline got sped up. So last year was a gift and it was a curse. But I wouldn't trade it for anything. I don't give a shit about what it put us in the mindset of. I'm glad we got the taste of last season so we see what success really looks like. Not that bullshit that we used to do back in the day when we would have to win 7 straight just to backdoor our way into the postseason. That's not what real success looks like. Real success is starting the season off 7-2. Real success is finishing the season on a 5-game win streak, taking that momentum into the playoffs as a 12-win team and going on the road and beating 2 opponents that won their division, including the number 1 seed who had the best record, not just in the conference, in the entire league. That's what real success looks like. That's what it feels like. And that should be the standard for us moving forward. That's what we should expect. Anything less should be a disappointing season. We are no longer happy to be here. And I'm glad we got to experience it so we know what it feels like. So now we know what to expect. We know what it feels like, and we know what it doesn't feel like. And if it's not right, which we felt it very early on this season, this doesn't feel like last year. It doesn't feel right. And every year, and the success from every year isn't going to feel the same, but you know what success feels like. Some of us hadn't felt it in a long time, and some of you hadn't felt it ever. So because of last year's success, we made some moves that put us in the position that we're in right now. And obviously, we couldn't have predicted the injury bug was going to bite us the way that it did, and that the injury reaper would just have a residency here in Washington, rent out an entire space right next to the stadium and walk over every single day and decide to reach out and touch somebody. We didn't know that was going to take place, but it did. But here's what I'm telling you. I said all of that to say this. I know you guys think that this team is light years away from being a real competitor, right? Competing for something meaningful. I don't think that's the case at all. I think that this season is a one-off. I think that in the NFL, these types of seasons happen. I've seen it happen to the best teams in football. The Ravens were this close. They were this close. They were literally a Lamar Jackson isn't coming back away from that season going in the doldrums. And I'll take it a step further. They were this close. If their division was actually good, if they played in the NFC East, there wouldn't have been any life for them at 1-5. But they play in a division with the Browns and they're lucky Joe Burrow is injured, right? Because the Bengals would be better. And they play in a division, and even saying that, the defense is still so bad that Joe Flacco's playing out of his mind, and it hasn't been enough. So don't even know if Burrow would have made the difference that we like to think he would have made, because Flacco's playing out of his mind, and it hasn't equated to wins. But they play in a division that's going to ultimately allow them to come back. It's the same thing that we said about C.J. Stroud last year. C.J. Stroud didn't have the season he had in his rookie year, and a lot of it was due to injuries. Same shit that's going on here in Washington this year. But ours is on a much higher and more egregious scale than the one he dealt with last year. But he was able to overcome that. Why? Because he played in a bad division. And the Ravens play in a bad division. And he's going to be able to lead the Ravens, I believe, back to the division title, because no one else in that division is any good. But we're not afforded the same liberties here in Washington. We have one of the best teams in football in our division. So not happening. But I can tell you that we're literally an off-season of shrewd moves, health, strong draft, away from being right back in the fight next year. And next week, we'll go over the players that we feel like are keepers that you're going to move forward with, because there's a large portion of this roster that frankly isn't going to be here after next year, and rightfully so. But you're literally one off season, not from being a Super Bowl contender. I think you're 2 off seasons away from that. You're one strong off season from being right back to where you were last year. Which and what I'm saying is, going into the season last year as, hey, really don't know what this Commanders team is going to be, because no one's going to be checking for us next year. With the way this season's going to end up, we're right back to where we were going into Jaden Daniels' rookie season of 2024. Like, Commanders are sort of an enigma. It's a new franchise, right? New general manager, new head coach, new quarterback. Like, it's new everything. Really don't know what to expect from them. We'll just see. Let's just see what they are. That's kind of what it's going to be in 2026. Last year, lost season. Maybe they're not as good as what we thought. Okay, we're cool on the Commanders. We really don't think they're going to be a major player in this thing. Now you're under the radar again. The only thing that's going to stop us from being like completely under the radar is Jaden Daniels. Whether you like it or not, his name has cachet. And you can't ignore what he did in 2024. And the crazy part is, he hasn't played up to the standard this year. You know, we have him in very rarefied air. And he's only shown us that maybe twice this season. And it's been in glimpses. It hasn't been for a complete game yet. We haven't seen it in an entire game. And there are a lot of factors as to why. We've talked about them already. But you saw it in the Bears game, right? Outside of the 2 turnovers, he was sharp in that game. But those turnovers happened, and one of them cost us the game. So you can't omit that. But he was sharp. He was razor sharp in that game. You forget very quickly think he had 3 touchdown passes in that game. Because of the mistakes, they overshadowed the fact that he was outstanding in that game. And then the Chargers game in the second half, really from the midpoint of the second quarter throughout the entire second half, ridiculous, right? It's the Jaden that we've come to know and love. And even with that said, go look at his numbers. He's still putting up really good numbers this season. So I can't wait to see him get back on the field with, you know, the proper time. You already know where I stand. I would prefer not to see him on the field the rest of this season. There's just, for me, the risk isn't worth the reward. You know, but if you're going to put him out there, which they are, all I ask is that you put him out there with some guys that give him a chance to actually run a competent offense. They don't give a shit. It could be Jalen, you know, Lane, Robbie Chosen, and Chris Moore. Clearly, that was the Dallas lineup. They're going to put him out there. They don't give a shit. Like, all I ask is that if you're going to put him out there, let it be Terry, let it be Noah, Debo, you know, let them have a fighting chance. But you have a strong offseason. And what does a strong offseason look like? It's got to look a lot like the 2024 offseason, where you bring in guys going into that second contract that are in that 26, 27 years old range, 28 years old, and you bring them in on the 3-year, $45 million deal, you know, like you did with Frankie Louvu. I think it was 3 for 36. I think Dorrance was somewhere in that 3 for 45, 3 for 48. You know, Tyler Biadish, Nick Allegretti on the cheaper side. You got to bring in a number of guys you trust to come in here and be really good football players that are going to help turn around your program. You got to draft well. And I know some of you have apprehension as to whether or not Adam Peters can do that. I am not of that belief right now. You're not going to hit it in every draft. I hate the fact that right now we have a draft in 2024 where we had 3 second-round picks, and right now none of them feel like true difference makers. That makes me sick to my stomach. I'm still riding for Mikey. You can't convince me Mikey can't play at a high level. I just think you got to use him correctly. I'm all in on Mikey, but Sennett hasn't been given the opportunity to show that he can. I can't say that he can't. He just hasn't been given the opportunity to show that he can, and that sucks. Again, circumstances have dictated that Zach Ertz is going to get the vast majority of the snaps. My thing has been, and it continues to be, you're allowed to put multiple tight ends on the field at once. You can take Ertz off the field, put Ben Sinnott on the field, and you can throw him the ball too. Or you can have both of them on the field at the same time. They can both actually run a route, and you can actually throw the ball to Ben Sinnott. You could call a tight end screen for Ben Sinnott. There's ways to get him involved. We just don't. We just don't. I know you guys, just sidebar, put a pin in what we're talking about. I know you've been following the A.J. Brown saga in Philadelphia. I know you have. This is must-see TV for me because I'm hoping that he destroys their situation from the inside. And I understand his frustration. Most people will say, bro, we're winning. Just shut up already. This is what you got to understand about playing the receiver position. There is no more frustrating position, exhausting position to play on a football field and not get the football. You want to know why receivers are quote unquote divas? I hate that word. I don't use that word. What did we come up with? What did we say we were going to say? What was the phrase that we said we were going to use in place of diva? That's a female term. I don't like the phrase diva. We gotta come up with the phrase. I don't remember what it was. But whatever that phrase is, we'll just say why receivers can be a distraction. That's what we'll just call it now. But we got to come up with a better phrase than that. It's because receivers want the ball. There is no other position that requires as much running, but no guarantee that you're getting the football. Remember Terry? Terry's not a super vocal guy when it comes to being frustrated. Anytime he speaks out, we know, man, he's pissed. Remember the "I just ran cardio today" bit from him? Remember that quote from him? Because nobody wants to be out there for 4 quarters running around and not getting the football. And A.J. Brown does that every single week. And it's not like he's some lower tier number 1 or some top tier number 2. You're talking about a top tier number 1 in the NFL. And he can't get the ball. There's no excuse for that. I understand why he's mad, but again, devil's advocate, you got to look at it from both sides. Bro, you guys are winning. You did the same thing last year. It all worked out. You got the ball at the end and you won the Super Bowl. Just chill, right? That's probably the sentiment of most Eagles fans. Just shut up already. This will correct itself. You'll get the football. Chill, bro. It just doesn't seem like he's going to get it. And I hope his frustration boils over. I can tell you this right now, as an outsider looking in, Jalen Hurts is not a fan of A.J. Brown, like the way he handles shit. Because it's the polar opposite of what Jalen Hurts does. Hurts just wants to win. You heard the telecast last night. He told Troy Aikman, I don't care about stats. I just want to win. We see that with this play. He could give a shit. Which is why he doesn't care if A.J. Brown only has 2 targets for 2 catches for 8 yards. He doesn't care as long as they win the game. But AJ's like, bro, I need the rock. Get me the football. We can still win the game, but you can win the game a lot easier if you just throw me the football. And his response to Troy Aikman and Joe Buck when they asked him about A.J. Brown tells me all I need to know. He's tolerating A.J. Brown at this point. He doesn't have any animosity towards him. But there, as Rio put it, because I told Rio, I said, he is tolerating A.J. Brown right now. Rio said they're mere co-workers. That is exactly the best way to describe their relationship. They are co-workers. They have to coexist. But they know, including Jalen Hurts, everyone in that building, including Jalen Hurts, knows they need A.J. Brown to win the Super Bowl. They have to have him. So they got to keep him mentally locked in. So they got to play the game. But Jalen Hurts is over this shit, bro. He's over it. But anyway, I digress. When you assess our situation, you're literally a strong offseason. Like I just said with the free agency piece, bringing in 3 or 4 guys that are young. Like, for instance, we don't know who's going to make it to free agency. We don't know right now, you know. And I haven't looked at that list of free agents. We'll see. But we got plenty of money. 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 It shouldn't be an issue to go out here and sign some guys. If, let's just say, Kyle Pitts becomes available, Atlanta's like, not franchise tagging you. You go out here and get your own money. There are going to be a lot of suitors. I'm not trying to get into a bidding war for Kyle Pitts, but for the right price, I would be all in on Kyle Pitts on a 3 or 4 year deal to bring him here to Washington. I'd be all in. And there will be other players that you feel like last year, 2 years ago, rather, 2024. And again, no one was checking for us in 2024. But guys like Jonathan Grenard were available. I wanted Jonathan Grenard here. All right. Daniil Hunter was available. Again, those guys weren't checking for us. They weren't checking for us. And I get it. Times have changed. But you got to be willing to spend too. You can't be cheap. So stuff is definitely going to hit the streets. Now, we're not out here spending Patriot money from last year where you're just overpaying for everything. They had to do that because of the state of their organization at the time. That's not where we are. And that's not what we're going to do, and that's not what we stand for. But I trust AP to make some shrewd moves, bring in some veterans that fit that timeline of where we are. I'm not looking for the 29, 30, 31-year-old veteran. We did that already. And they may mix a couple of those in. And I'm not opposed to that. But those can't be the crux of your offseason. Literally, last offseason was full of 29s and 30-somethings, right? Bringing back Ertz, bringing back Wagner, signing, trading for Debo, trading for Laramie Tunzel, signing Dietrich Wise, signing Jonathan Jones. We literally, our offseason was full of veterans because of where we were. Context matters. Well, we're not there anymore. So you don't want to go all the way to the other end of the spectrum and just say we need all young guys and no veterans, because you still need veteran presence on your roster. But the vast majority of the guys they bring in this year need to be of a certain age that meets the timeline of where this team is. And where the team is right where Jaden is. That's the timeline. 26, 27, 28, right in that neighborhood. Jaden's 25, if I'm not mistaken. 24, 25. I think he's 25. Right in that neighborhood. That's where we should be trying to acquire players to come in here, spend the next 3 years of their career, next 4 years of their career. Then you got to have a solid draft. Clearly, you're at a disadvantage right now because you don't have a second-round pick. You don't have a fourth-round pick. You're at a disadvantage. That could change on draft night. Just like we saw Adam Peters trade back in 2024 and pick up picks. He can do the same thing. We could be sitting there at 9, and there could be a wealth of great players available that teams are interested in, and we can move from 9 back to 16 and pick up a second-round pick. Again, some of you are like, I don't trust him. Give me the can't miss prospect at 9 because I'm not sure he's going to get it done at 16. And I'm not sure he's going to get it done with the second round pick. He had 3 of them in 2024. He didn't get it done. Touche. Only one way to find out, though. So what I'm essentially saying is next year, we could be right back in the mix. I expect to be. Biggest reason why is we got Jaden Daniels. And anytime you got a quarterback, you got a shot. Which is why the rest of this season, the only thing that matters is getting Jaden Daniels to the offseason healthy. Not rehabbing, not trying to get back to 100%, but healthy. So that by the time we get to March, by the time we get to April, we're getting posts of him out in Cali, out in, Arizona or wherever he chooses to work out. We're getting posts of him throwing a football to somebody, working with his quarterback guru and quarterbacks coach, throwing a football, getting better. That's what we want. That happens coupled with some shrewd moves in the offseason. They got to recalibrate in the staff, like who's calling plays defensively. They got some shit to figure out. But this is a week-to-week, season-to-season league. just last year, and I get it, they changed staffs and this, that, and the third. But the Bears were pretty much where we are right now. And again, I don't think the Bears are good, just for the record. Like, they keep winning games at the end. I guess you could say the same thing about us last year. Ours looked and felt a lot different than theirs did. I mean, we were dominant offensively. We had weeks where we didn't punt. That's not what they're doing in Chicago, but they're finding ways to win, and that's what matters, right? I think they're going to start losing here in a bit, though. They've got some tough games coming up. Starting with this week, Caleb Williams hasn't won a game in the division yet in his career. He hasn't beaten a divisional opponent yet. Here's another opportunity. They've already lost to Minnesota this year. See if they can beat them the second time around. But what a difference a year makes, right? Last year, the Bears sucked. This year, if the playoffs started tomorrow, they'd be in it. Every year, it's like that. 2 or 3 teams that were in the playoffs the year before aren't there the next year. I'm sick and tired of us being one of those teams that either wasn't in the playoffs the year before that's looking to make our way back into the mix, or we were in it and now we're not, and we're the team that falls out so somebody else can get in. What we need to do and what we're looking to do is establish ourselves as one of the teams. Like, it's 7 spots in the postseason in each conference. And 3 of them are probably spoken for before the season starts. Before the season starts in the AFC, you know that Buffalo, Baltimore, and Kansas City are going to be in the playoffs. It's just about seeding where they're going to be. But those 3 are going to be there, barring some sort of catastrophe, at the most important position. As long as their quarterbacks are upright, you can bet your bottom dollar Kansas City, Buffalo, and Baltimore are going to be in the playoffs in the AFC. What seed they have is up for debate. But because I think over the last 7 years, each of them have been the number 1 seed. I don't know if Buffalo was ever the number 1 seed. I don't know if they've ever gotten higher than 2. But Baltimore clearly was the number 1 seed multiple times for Lamar Jackson, and usually Mahomes is the number 1 seed. In the NFC, it's hard to say that there's anyone that has established themselves in that manner, but usually if Green Bay's healthy, they're in the playoffs. Usually if Philadelphia is healthy, they're in the playoffs. And usually if San Francisco is healthy, they're in the playoffs. Those are the 3 teams, and the Rams too. So, and if I had to take a team out and say that they don't necessarily make it every year, it'd be San Francisco, because even though they've made it to the NFC Championship game more than anyone else over that 7-year stretch, they've also dealt with a ton of injuries over that stretch and haven't even been a playoff team. Whereas the Rams, as long as Matthew Stafford is upright, they're a playoff team. And they're a dangerous one. They've won a Super Bowl in that time frame. So, but you could throw San Francisco in there if you want. But there's still 3 spots that are fluctuating every year. 3 spots in the NFC. And then there's 3 or 4 in the AFC fluctuating every year, including the AFC North or South, excuse me, because it could be Jacksonville one year, which it was. Houston has been the division champ the last 2 years. That's not going to happen this year. And, now Indy's in the mix. So that's a revolving door in that division. And then the 3 wild cards. I want to establish us as one of those teams that you can count us in there as one of the teams that's going to be there. That takes time. But here's what I can tell you. Next year, we'll be right back in the mix competing. That's how I feel. We'll see what the offseason brings. I don't think, oh man, we're gonna suck for the next 2 years while we build this roster up. Not with Jaden Daniels at quarterback, we not. Not with Jaden Daniels at quarterback. And I'm not suggesting, and my guy Derek B, he was saying that ultimately we put too much faith or too much pressure on Jaden to do everything. And we did. That's guilty as charged. He bailed us out of a lot of jams last year. This was not a good football team. This was not a good roster last year. This was not a good defense last year. But he made up for all of the deficiencies. He closed all of those gaps last year. So we were just relying on him to do it again. Now, they upgraded the roster. Once again, this was a better team on paper prior to the injuries than the one we put on the field last year. Light years better. But it had no depth. We knew that in the preseason. We saw the way this team was manhandled by other teams that had depth. We didn't. So we knew we had to stay healthy, and our frontline guys had to stay healthy and play like frontline guys for us to have a shot. And we really never got a chance to see that get off the ground due to the injuries. So I'm not advocating for us to put the onus on Jaden again to just be Superman. This is why it is important that you build up the roster in the offseason. And everything's not going to get done in one offseason. But if you continue to put talent around Jaden Daniels, you continue to strengthen this defense brick by brick. You got it. Next year, the goal should be to find one foundational defensive piece, whatever that looks like. I would prefer it to be along the defensive line and be an edge rusher, honestly speaking. But that should be the goal next year, is to add one foundational piece defensively. It could be a safety. It could be a corner. It could be a linebacker. It could be a defensive lineman. I would prefer it to be a defensive lineman. I would love to see Jordan McGee continue to develop. Have him be ready to take that next step forward next year. Trey Amos come back, be exceptional at the cornerback position. Add a mate, and that might be a free agency acquisition where you add a really solid corner, or maybe it's in the draft. Maybe that third round pick is a corner to go opposite of Trey Amos. Who knows? Whatever that looks like. What's going to be just as important is figuring out who's calling the defense next year. It ain't Joe Witt. And I'm not sure it's going to be DQ. Who the hell's calling the defense next year? They got to figure that out, and they got to get that right. It might be DQ. Who knows? I said all of that to say this. In my mind, this is a one-off. The injuries, how shit's gone sideways, this is not indicative of who we will be moving forward. We never got a shot in 2025, and that's unfortunate. But it's just 2025. 2026 will be a new season. All bets are off. Everyone starts over at 0-0. We got Jaden Daniels. Hopefully we'll have Terry McLaurin back, healthy. Hopefully he'll have a sidekick, whether that's Debo back and another guy, or somebody else and a guy they added in free agency, or just another guy in the draft, whatever that looks like. Whatever that looks like, they'll figure it out. Tight end will either be upgraded, or we're actually going to see if we have a guy in Ben Sinnott that can actually be what a second-round pick tight end is supposed to be in this league. Or if it's Colson Yankoff. Who knows? Who knows? Some of these guys may be right here, diamonds in the rough, and we just haven't given them a chance to show what they can do. Who knows? But next year, I got a feeling that this team will be right back in the mix. Healthy, ready to rock and roll. And we'll see the version of this team that we were expecting to see this year. We'll see them next year. But it starts by finishing this year off the right way, which is healthy. Can't stress that enough. That is the first step to being good next year, is finishing this year healthy. then having a strong offseason. Again, you're not going to fix everything. Impossible to, especially when you have as many needs as we do. But you address the ones that you can. You fill in the others with, stop gaps, Band-Aid solutions. And you put your best team out on the field on a weekly basis to give this team a chance to win. What will be very key for this team next year is the development of the young players that are already here. We can't talk about, like Dan Quinn talking about the development of Johnny Newton and the development of Ben Sinnott and how far these guys have come. We ain't seen it. You might be seeing it in practice. So, again, I can't speak to that. But we actually got to see it on the field. You didn't draft Ben Sinnott in the second round to be a full-time blocker. That's not what you did. That's John Bates' job. You drafted Ben Sinnott to be a pass-catching chess piece, H-back / tight end. We'll use him as such then. Colson Yankoff is here because he's supposed to be a pass-catching athletic tight end. Okay, well, let's see it. We can't talk about the development of Johnny Newton. We can't talk about the development of a Brandon Coleman. We can't talk about the development of a Johnny Newton or Jordan McGee. We got to see it next year. Jalen Lane has to be better. Trey Amos has to take the next step. So does Josh Connolly Jr. Bill has to be, either Bill is what we thought he was or he ain't. I'm a massive Bill fan. I think Bill is truly like that. And you know what I also think we failed to remember with Bill? He didn't play football last year. So there wasn't a ton of reps. And so there's a feeling out process. It came to him so fast early in the season. And then just like that, kind of got snatched away with the fumbles. And then offensive line just went to hell in a handbasket from a blocking standpoint, it feels like. I don't think the scheme and some of the play calls have been all that helpful, but he's one of the few guys down the stretch of the season that we will see that I'm anxious to see get more opportunities, and I want to see him kind of build back up that confidence. So anyway, I digress. I think there are going to be some opportunities this offseason to get some good football players who are young going into the prime of their careers that you can add on to this roster. I think there are some small guys that you can fill in between there that don't cost you a lot, that are some of those under the radar, unsung hero type guys that you can get for a bargain. But this is where your scouting and developmental staff has to be able to assess those players, understand how they fit, and go out and get them and bring them here. I was talking about some of those guys last year. A Divine Diablo was a guy that I was very high on, who went to Atlanta, has played well for the Falcons. Like, that doesn't cost you a lot of money, but he's he would have fit so well in that Jeremy Chin hybrid, Buffalo nickel type role. Like, you got to find those guys. They're out there. So we'll see what they do. Let's get to the comment section. Oh, before we do that, let's get a word from one of our sponsors, come back on the other side, and then we'll get to the comment section. Sleeper is the best way to experience and connect over sports together. It's a one-stop shop for all of your sports needs. You can celebrate and chat in the games in real time with other users, get the fastest scores, blazing fast news and alerts right at your fingertips. Play in fantasy leagues and win real money on picks contests. So enjoy sports the way they were meant to, together. Download the #1 sports app today. Predict the hottest football stats like passing yards, receiving yards, touchdowns, interceptions, and much more to cash in on your daily fantasy football skills. Use promo code LTN and Sleeper will match your first deposit up to $100. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 25 states. Check out Sleeper today. Sleeper. All right, so let's get to the comment section and see what you guys have to say. Start off the night with Commander Cole. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Commander Cole writes, thank you for being a member of the MOBB. We are one off season away. Want to know why? It's simple. We got 5. There you go. I couldn't. You basically summed up what I said in an hour. I'm all over the place. You summed it up in 5 seconds. In 1, 2, 3, 4 sentences. We are one off season away. Want to know why? Question mark. It's simple. We got 5. There you go. You got 5. So you have a foundation and a building block that most teams in the NFL do not have. Most bad teams don't have a potential generational talent at the quarterback position. The Jets don't have that. The Browns don't have that. The Titans don't even have that. And I'm not telling you that Cam Ward isn't a talented kid that can do some things. He ain't Jaden Daniels. There are probably Titans fans that are like, we need to draft another quarterback already. That's too soon to give up on the kid. Because he's shown you some things this season, but he ain't Jaden Daniels. Right. The Saints, who knows? Tyler Shuck might be exactly what they need. He won a game this weekend that a lot of people didn't see them winning. We'll see what Tyler Shuck looks like. But when you look at the bad teams in the league right now, the worst teams in football, they don't have the foundation building block that we have in Jaden Daniels. You're one offseason away from being right back in the mix as one of the better teams in the NFC. And the core of that starts with Jaden Daniels. The 9-5 Bowler. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, no one wants to run block and not get fed the rock. That sucks. Like, again, growing up, the word that our receivers coach told us was, if you want the rock, you got to block. So AJ blocks and he does all of that, but he's running routes. You're running down the field. You constantly running, and you're not getting the football. And you can help. They scored 10 points. You know what I'm saying? Like, it ain't like they out here scoring 27. And look, we've seen him disgruntled in a playoff game where they beat up the Giants like 34-10. I don't remember what the score was. And he was not happy on the sidelines in that game because he didn't get his shit off. Look, he wants the football. And this is all I know. They better get him the football. They better get him the football. But I've always said this. I will never understand how you have a dominant player and you don't get him the football. You will never be able to convince me that, the whole excuse and narrative of, the defense took this guy away. Bullshit. You don't think defenses try to take Puka Nacua away every week? Somehow, Sean McVay happens to get him the damn ball 19 times every week. I ain't trying to hear that shit, man. You want to get your guy the ball, trust me, you can get him the football. You don't think teams try to take Jamar Chase away every week? And every time you look up, Joe Flacco got there a week and a half prior. This man had 25 targets and had 18 catches. I ain't trying to hear that shit, man. You want to get your best player the ball, you can get him the football. Miss me with all of this defense dictates this and that bullshit. Even when Jaden was saying that about Terry, I was like, Jaden, miss me with that bullshit, man. I ain't trying to hear that. You want to get Terry the ball, y'all can get Terry the ball. You can scheme up ways to get Terry the football. I ain't trying to hear that shit. Christopher McLaughlin, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy, Chris, writes, hey, Lou. What's up, Chris? Hope all is well with you and the family. Likewise. We need at least 2 more drafts and free agencies. The Eagles are the standard. Yes, they are. On offense, we need 2 wide receiver 2, running back 1, tight end 1, and defense. On defense, we need 2 defensive ends, a middle linebacker, and an outside linebacker, a cornerback, and a safety. Thoughts? Yeah, we need all of that shit. We need all of that. You're not going to get all of that in one offseason. But here's what you can do, right? You get Terry back. Let's say you bring Debo back. I don't know if that's something they're interested in doing or not. I don't know what the cost looks like. My whole mindset was this was a 1-year rental. He was going after this year. So we'll see. But you need a wide receiver 2 regardless. Even if you bring Debo back, you still need to go get something else. Whatever that looks like. Running back 1, I personally am not giving up on Bill. And there are other pressing needs. You can get by at running back with what you already have. You could add a little something in free agency, maybe throw something back into the draft or undrafted. Hell, you even already have Donovan Edwards. Like you look at what you have, you assess your situation. You may not have a true number 1 running back. You might not have RB1 here, but that's not something you need to go out of your way to go get right now. There are other pressing needs that supersede that. Now, if something falls into your lap, or you really like a guy in the 5th round next year in the draft, whatever, then so be it, right? But I think you can get by on running back right now. Tight end 1, TE1, that's an interesting conversation because we still really don't know what the hell Ben Sinnott can do. Really interesting conversation. On defense, we definitely need 2 defensive ends. That's a non-negotiable. One of them needs to be an elite young prospect, and the other could be a free agent for all I care. And it could be a low-level free agent, like another Jacob Martin type. Because again, you're not gonna fix that position in one offseason. You could go ahead and draft 2 of them if you like, knock yourself out, but you want to spread the wealth. Middle linebacker, it could be Jordan McGee already. It could be Ale Cajo for Jesus, we got to stop getting him knocked out every week. I loved him in the preseason. But it could be Jordan McGee. He could be, the guy that really helps solidify that linebacker position. And you just build off of that. Outside linebacker, we probably need one of those. You got Frankie right now, but you're probably going to need one of those in the tuck. Cornerback, clearly you need a corner. Clearly, you're going to need a corner. That position is going to be bare next. Pretty much like it was this offseason. Remember, going into the last offseason, you had Mikey and Marshawn, and that was it. They had to bring back Noah. They signed Jonathan Jones, and they drafted Trey Amos. So it's going to basically be back to the drawing board. Trey Amos and Mikey, right? And now you got to figure out the other 3 corners. So corner is pretty bare. And safety's interesting because they signed Will Harris to a 2-year deal. He comes back. He's healthy. He finishes the season. He's going to be back. Jeremy Reeves is going to be back. Tyler Owens, undrafted. Don't know if they loved him enough this year. Maybe they say, okay, he got some reps. We see some promise in him. We'll see. But Quan Martin, he's not going anywhere. Not now, at least. But I want to upgrade the position, but I don't think they're going to upgrade the position. They may bring in another guy, but it won't be like a true difference maker. They're not going out there and bringing in an Xavier McKinney in free agency, I don't think. So I don't disagree with this list, though. We need all of this shit. We need all of it. Corin Smith, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, JD is elite. Elite wide receivers will keep us in the playoffs. If you go, if you're able to surround Jaden with talent, clearly he loves throwing the ball to the tight end. So whatever you do there is important, I believe, because Ertz turned into his security blanket, the guy that he's looking for because he knows he can win for him. You need another one of those type players. And if you can find one of those guys via free agency or the draft, it doesn't matter. That would go a long way in helping Jalen maximize his potential. And then, yes, you do need to add another receiver. You do that, and then you can supplement the rest of those receiver positions with solid guys. This offense will have a chance to thrive. It'll have a chance to thrive. He did a lot with less last season. But it starts with a tight end that he can trust and a number one wide receiver to make sure that the defense is honest. You give him those two things, and we can build from there, which is why we need Terry healthy, and you have to replace Zach Ertz with a guy that can win, that he can get the football to. You start there, and from there you build. From there you build. DCJ, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. DCJ writes, what's good, Lou? What's up, DCJ? Quick, say what's up with the podcast. So I think I said this earlier. You might not have been privy to this, but I am in the stages of rebranding the podcast, changing the way it looks, how it functions, that sort of thing. I've been dragging my feet. Now that's on me, if we're being honest. This probably could have been done a long time ago, but been juggling a lot in my personal life as well as the professional setting. And so I've prioritized my health over trying to, get the podcast back up and running. But I think next week is a big week for me. If I'm being honest with myself, there's no Commanders, content that is going to be taking up as much of my time. So I'm not having to wait on the injury report to come out. I can do these videos a lot earlier in the day, which will free up a lot more time for me if I so choose. And thus, I will have more time to kind of get those things going with the podcast and get that ball rolling a lot sooner so that I can get that thing up and running again. Because like I told you, the podcast is coming back. It's a flagship program of this brand. It's not going away. Trust me. But when I bring it back, I want it to look and perform a certain way that I envision it doing in my head. And I got a little ways to go before I iron out all of the kinks that I have right now. So it'll be back though. And my goal is to have it be back before the end of this season. So hopefully by Christmas, we'll be talking about the podcast again. Hopefully. Derek B, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy Derek B writes, I don't want to waste JD like Bengals waste Burrow. And no one does. And they haven't been able to fix their defense. They haven't been able to protect Burrow. I don't think we have the issues up front, offensive line-wise, that they have. We got a left tackle that is worth every single pick that we spent, and whatever money we're going to pay him in the offseason, he's worth it. He's proven that this season. Josh Connolly is coming off of one of his best games. I saw him block Aiden Hutchinson with no help, and I was so proud of him. So he's coming along, and Cosme will continue to round into shape and into form. He's just getting his sea legs under him, and I'm not opposed to them drafting a left guard or a center. Like Biotish is, and again, centers and guards, those positions, they age pretty solidly, but Biotish has to be getting close to 30 here shortly. So I wouldn't be opposed to drafting some interior offensive lineman. But Coleman, I think this is a big offseason for Brandon Coleman. I fully expect him to compete to win that left guard job next year. And if he can't, I'm going to be very disappointed. That's a wasted pick. You don't draft a backup interior offensive lineman in the third round. So they're going to be very disappointed if Brandon Coleman can't find a way. Like, this was a wake-up call. You had your job taken from you by 7th round pick from a previous regime. They have no incentive to put Chris Paul in the game and every reason to put you in the game, and they elected to go with Chris Paul. And you were a healthy scratch. That is a wake-up call. Now I need to see him dedicate himself in the offseason, come back in the best shape of his life, and I need him to come take that job back. Or worst case scenario, dedicate yourself to being a center then. Shit, make yourself valuable. Do something. But I'm with you. I don't want to see them waste Jaden Daniels like Cincinnati's doing with Burrow. We can protect Jaden. I don't think that's the issue. We need to be better, though, right? We need to be better at protecting him, but we can. I think the biggest issue right now is the defense. Same thing Burrow's going through with the defense. Like, don't matter how good you are if your defense stinks every year. And Jaden hasn't had the benefit of even a quality defense yet in his first 2 years. Not even a quality defense. He's had an atrocious defense each of his first 2 seasons. That's where the problem lies for me. The Big Energy Company and Big Energy Co. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, Lou, what up? What would it take for you to feel good about this team going into the offseason? Wins, competitiveness, draft position, health. At this point, I would love the draft position. Clearly, that would be the thing after health that would make me feel the best. It doesn't feel good to get blown out every week. So I would like to see this team be competitive. But, I'm torn between, winning games. Like, I want to beat the Eagles. I would love to be the reason that the Eagles aren't the 1 seed, but instead the 3 seed, because we beat them. And instead of them because they don't lose at home in the playoffs. You say what you want about, they don't lose at home. The difference between them going to the Super Bowl last year and them not was us taking care of Detroit for them. I don't think they would have gone to Detroit and won last year. I don't. Jalen Hurts has not won a road playoff game yet. And until he does, I'm going to keep saying it. And so if they got to go to LA, if they got to go to Detroit, if they got to go to Seattle, I'm not sure. And again, I don't trust Sam Darnold. So I don't know if Seattle's a great example to use there. But the Rams, the Detroit Lions, hell, even Tampa, they got to go back to Tampa again. I'm not sure I'm taking the Bucks over those teams. Or I'm not taking the Eagles over those teams if they got to go on the road. We might be the difference between them being a 1 seed or the 3 seed. You damn right I'd like to be the reason that they're the 3 seed instead. But I also want that, that luxurious pick. I also want that top 5 pick that has value. I want that top 3 pick if I can get my hands on it. So I'm stuck. You can't have it both ways. You can't have your cake and eat it too. You either want to dedicate yourself and you're willing to take the lumps that is required to be a top 3 pick team in the draft, or you trying to straddle the fence and you're going to end up with the 15th or the 13th pick in the draft. You can't have it both ways. I just want to be healthy. That's the most important thing for me. It's in the season healthy. Everything else will take care of itself. If we're supposed to be one of those teams that's in the mix with, draft, with a high draft pick, because, looking at the team right now, I don't think any of us see a path in which this team wins any more than 5 games. It feels like the max right now. Now, again, DQ taking over play calling responsibilities on the defensive side could change some things, and all of a sudden they're not as bad on the defensive side. You get Terry, Noah, Jaden back after the bye. Will Harris comes back, and all of a sudden this team looks formidable again. Now you start winning some damn games. It'll suck because you're going to end up with the 16th pick in the draft doing that. But it also would remind a lot of the fan base that, hey, we're not as far as you think. We're not as far as you think. So, again, I'm going to feel good if we just go into the offseason healthy, because you can't convince me that with a healthy Jaden Daniels, a healthy Terry McLaurin, this team can't compete offensively. And then you do the things you need to do defensively. One of the biggest things that no one's talking about right now, because we haven't really focused in on it because we're in a season and we're just searching for answers. But the biggest thing is, what are you going to do from a defensive play calling standpoint next year when we're actually playing competitive games again? Is DQ just the defensive play caller from here on out? I mean, if that's the case, okay, cool. But is he going to say, you know what, I'm going to hire someone? What does that look like? That's important, because I think there are pieces currently on this defense right now that can actually play, that aren't being showcased and having the proper light cast on their talents to allow them to thrive. So, June TV, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. June TV writes, I bet you don't know Elias' hit song was in 1992. What Elias song are you talking about? Are you talking about follow me, follow me, follow me? Is that what you talking about? Follow me, doom, 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 doom. Why don't you follow me to a place where we can be free? Corin Smith, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. What's up, Lou? Bill can be our Brian Westbrook. I love Bill. I really think Bill has a chance to be a dynamic back. That hasn't changed for me, man. Seriously, that hasn't changed. Those fumbles, I think they hit his confidence up a little bit. Hit his confidence up style. Really good. They sat him down a little bit last week. That was intentional, right? I think the height of his struggles were capped in that Seattle game. To me, that was the lowest point of the season. I don't think you can get any lower than the Seattle game. I don't want to get any lower than that game. I don't want to go any lower than that. He was hesitant in that game. And that's one of the best run defenses. That is the best run defense in football, by the way. But he didn't run with purpose. He didn't run with that aggression that we've seen, right? We saw him in the preseason. There are very few. Somebody showed me a statistic of running backs that have found a way to get positive yards with at least one defender 1 yard into the backfield. He was third on the list in the NFL, which shows you there's always somebody back there. And then it shows his ability to find a way to make the first defender miss and still get a yard. He's got talent. It's about maximizing the talent, finding what best suits him in the run game. I really liked some of the things they did against Seattle. Seattle, from a run standpoint with Jaden getting under center. You need to implement some of that under center stuff. We keep hearing about, Cliff has all of this stuff that we haven't seen before still in his playbook. Well, at what point do you start pulling some of that shit out? We ain't seen none of the under center shit. We ain't seen that since last year. That was a sight for sore eyes. We got a 4th down conversion based off of being under center. I'm not telling you we need to go primarily under center, but there's a place for that. There is a place for that in the league, going under center. There's so much you can do from under center. I'd like to see more of it. I think Bill can be a huge part of that. And I think you can throw it to Bill out of the backfield too. I just think there's so many more uses for Bill than what we've seen. And I pray that the injury reaper just doesn't do anything crazy down the stretch. And one of the guys that I truly want to see continue, because he more so than anybody else, this is a guy that didn't play football basically last year. No one needs reps more than Bill. Nobody needs reps more than he does. So I'd love to see him get an opportunity. June TV, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. June TV, double up, thank you for doubling up with rights. Respect, Lou. You know your stuff. Hashtag MHU. Look, MusicHead University exists for a reason, bro. Especially if you're talking R&B. I'm an R&B, that's house music right there, but I'm an R&B head through and through. So you ain't gonna be able to sneak much past me. But just like I talked about with the podcast, MusicHead University, I will not let that die. This offseason, I'm telling you right now, I'm going full bore with MusicHead University this offseason. When things slow down, I'm going to channel so much energy into that channel and getting it where I want it to be, because it's another point of my passions. There aren't many things that I'm super passionate about, but music is one. Obviously, football in general, NFL is another. Sports, though, baseball, basketball, football, but NFL in particular, like super passionate about the NFL and this team. And music, those are my two biggest passions. Outside of my family and, just living life and being happy, I'm not letting MusicHead University die. So that channel will be back in full force. And I got a lot of ideas. I've been jotting down ideas this entire time. Now it's just about making them come to life. So anyway, I digress. But I appreciate you, June TV. With that said, that's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on the Command Post Live. You know what it is. Post up. Take command. I just wanted to come here and tell y'all tonight, we are not as far away from competing as you think. It feels like we're miles and miles and miles away right now, because we are right now. You hit the reset button over the offseason, you make a few moves, you get healthy, you come back retooled, reloaded. Okay, I'm reloaded. And you got 5? You got a shot. That's all we can ask for. So, you guys have a good one. Enjoy the rest of your night. And before I go, want to remind you about Sunday morning. The Kings will be live Sunday morning. 9 p.m. or a.m., excuse me. Game starts at 9:30. We'll kick off the pregame talking about all of the things, who's active, who's inactive, what we expect to see, et cetera, et cetera. Join the gang, man. We're going to be live. We're going to have a great time. Ed will be joining us in the second half. He's got a prior engagement that he's got to deal with, but he will join us in the second half. But Rico, Rio, and myself will be there from the jump, and we will carry you all the way through the entirety of the game. Ed will join us in the second half, and then we will be made whole as the Kings will ride again Sunday morning. And we want everybody there. We're trying to have over 3,000 people watching this game live on Sunday morning with us. So join us. We're going to have a great time. Look, even if the game get out of hand like these last 4 have, you still got us. And we still got y'all. And we got each other. And we're going to have a good time. It's going to be a party. Let's just look at it as a party. Whether we win or lose, we're going to have us a good time, man. So shout out to everybody for watching this stream. Shout out to people that'll be watching this on playback. Make sure you mark your calendar. Commanders, Kings, Sunday morning. Madrid game. Come kick it with us. Let's watch it live together. So you guys enjoy the rest of your night. Take care. God bless. Peace.